That everyone will enjoy this. I know we all have a lot to learn from Davida tonight, and Davida, I'm thankful for you to be here, and I'm going to hand it over to you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up, we're good? Okay. So I'm very low key, so I'm just going to be myself. And then we can kind of go from there. So I'm Davida Haygood. I live in Puyallup, Washington. I've lived here since 2002 in the area. I just found out the hard way that when I used to live downtown Puyallup and I moved to another house and thinking I was still in that downtown Puyallup area, I'm like a light away. So it like broke my heart. So I'm trying to figure out if I want to stay or move. So, because I loved that downtown area. I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm sure you can guess why I left. You know, you only can do a lifetime of 120-degree weather in the summer for so long, and then you've had enough. So I moved up here to Washington, and I haven't left. My family has begged me to come back, and I currently have no desire to go back. Well, I told them this. I said, if California breaks off from a major earthquake and you get a beach, then I'll come back. So that might be the reason to come back. So I am married. I've been married for 8 years since July 7th. I have 2 children. My son, and actually, I'll show you a picture of them. Let me see if I can pull this up. Where is let's do this. Okay, for some reason, my mouse wants to act crazy all of a sudden. So I have 2 children. I have my son, his name is Honore. He just turned 21. He was so excited when he turned 21. He currently lives in Eugene, Oregon. He's a student at Northwest Christian University. He loves basketball. He plays basketball. And so that's my firstborn. He's going through that phase of, I'm an adult, let me be adult when I want to be adult and when I want you to be mommy, and then be there when I want you to be mommy, but don't be there unless I tell you I need you to be. It's like this really weird, and I'm sure all of you can give me advice of when you're parenting an adult. It's really weird. So he's 21, and then I have my daughter, Patience, who is 13.
Davida, we're not seeing the photos yet. We're just seeing your desktop, just to let you know.
Oh, really? Let's try that again. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. I just thought you'd want us to see. And
can you
there
see
we go.
Now?
Yep,
okay.
Now we got it. Thank you.
So my daughter, Patience, she's 13. She goes to Callis Junior High. She used to go to Meeker. She is so excited because as of last week, she is now on point shoes for ballet. So she does competition dance, like that is her thing, other than the other typical things a 13-year-old now, social media, makeup, and all the fun stuff. So those are my babies. So that is probably my favorite part, is being a parent. I currently am the interim director of education for Pierce College. I've been at Pierce College now for 5 years. I went from a part-time faculty member, got tenured last year, and then became interim director last year. So lots of fun stuff. I love it there. They're on their own journey, as well as many of us in society, of growing and developing and becoming an anti-racist institution. So a little bit about, I want to make sure I hit all the points that Robert asked. So that I come from a long background of social justice work. I grew up in the church as a child, and it was so cool. I could never get in trouble because my pastor literally lived directly across the street from me. So they lived directly across the street from us, and my pastor's wife was my child care provider as a child. And so I was with them just as much as I was at home. And my pastor growing up in Arizona was one of the civil rights leaders in Arizona in the 90s, especially when came to establishing the Martin Luther King holiday. So he would come over Saturday morning, 7 o'clock, knock on my door, tell my mom, get the girls ready, tell my stepdad, get the girls ready, we're going to go march downtown. And so wherever he went, I went. You know, when they had bishops' meetings, I was there. When they were having meetings with city council members or governor, I was there. When the women's group were I was their baby and tote all the time. Even as I grew up, we used to tease a lot because they're not teenagers now, they're like in their 50s, but his kids, when it used to be so funny, his son had a red Firebird back in the day. And where my room was, if I saw that red Firebird try to pull out of their driveway without me, I would run outside because I was convinced where you go, I go. And so I was talking to, I call her Mama Sheila. She's 90 now. And I said, Mama Sheila, she goes, you know, what are you up to? And I was telling her all the work I'm doing. She goes, oh boy, I hear your papa coming out of you. Your papa would be so proud of you. You know, if he knew that all those times that we were toting you around, you did learn something. So, so this is like in my blood type of thing. So, so in Puyallup, a couple things that I've done just outside of my profession is there are 2 Facebook groups that I'm admin for, a lead. One of them is Puyallup United Against Fear, and that was birthed out of the protests that we had in downtown Puyallup. And what I found was, first off, there was like 400 people who showed up. It was fantastic. It was amazing. It made my heart really swell. I saw the response. I saw the people who are really committed and invested in wanting change. But then I also noticed there were so many questions, so many you know, for me, this is my lived experience. And there are many people who are now are like, it's just eye-opening for them. There's a lot of learning that's happening. And so I was thinking, I was like, okay, there's no way I'm going to be able to sit and meet with all these people to answer questions. So how can I help get education out there in a place that's safe to ask those questions that someone may be feel uncomfortable to ask in other places? So that's where that original Facebook page came from, Puyallup United Against Fear. You know, I post articles, I post videos, there's some links for book reads, just a place for people to ask questions, get resources as they are unpacking racism and, you know, how do we navigate this? What does this look like? Secondly, there is a Facebook page. It used to be called BML South Hill, but recently we've changed the name to Am I Next Puyallup? It was originally started by Gabriel, who was a young man who was doing the protest up on 176th. He reached out to me and said, hey, this is a lot. You know, he's 21, you know, and when you're in this fight for social justice, it can be exhausting. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. You're putting yourself out there. So the target you already had on you, you become an even bigger target. So he was like, you know, I'm completely still in the fight, but I also want to be 21 and I need to get a job and I need to grow up and I need to be an adult. Do you mind taking over? And I said, sure. So I took over of that Facebook page, and from the 2 of those birthed the nonprofit, which is the Two-Way Racial Healing Project, and I'll share more about that. So I am pretty busy. So I have my full-time job. I have my full-time job in social work. I have being a mom. My daughter has gotten to the point where usually about 7:30, 8 o'clock, she'll walk in and be like, okay, turn the computer off, you know, come watch a movie with me, or turn the computer off, go to bed. And so, or take me to dance, you know, so it's pretty busy life. For anyone who knows downtown Puyallup, I attend church at New Seasons, which is right behind the downtown Safeway. It used to be Lampstand. The original pastor had passed away, and then his son took over and established that church. So that's where I attend church. So a couple disclaimers for tonight. As I want this to be as if we're at, I love camping. So if we were, I call it a fireside chat. So please, just like Gretchen interrupted and said, hey, I didn't see your screen. Please feel free to interrupt. Please feel free to raise and use the hand raising to ask questions. I want to have a discussion. I find that I work better with that piece. As we're having this discussion, please allow yourself to be uncomfortable. You're going to be uncomfortable. There are going to be things you're going to be like, I've known life one way. And part of unpacking and this healing process of racism is really changing the way of how some people have always known life. And that's not easy. And so please allow yourself to be uncomfortable. If you start feeling emotions of resistance, ask yourself why, and give yourself space to reflect. Reflect on why you're feeling that way. And this is not a usual group for me, but feel safe to ask questions, and I'm comfortable with that. And part of what I'm talking about tonight, I am going to talk about things that could possibly trigger memories, trigger past traumas. So I want to make you aware of that piece. So with that, any questions about my trek to the world? I don't know what to say. But before I get into the meat of the content. All right. Go ahead, Miss. Is it Doris?
Yes, Doris. I just wanted to share with you that my family and I went to the Black Lives Matter protest in Pioneer Park, and you were not on my radar before then, but I will tell you that amazing daughter of yours just moved me so tremendously. I ended up walking away from that scenario thinking, I have got to know this woman. Anybody who is in my realm, my daughter is going to be, she's in 8th grade now at Calais, and I thought this woman has clearly done such a fabulous job with her own kids. I need to know her. I need to participate in her world. So I was thrilled, absolutely thrilled to hear about this program and have a chance to pretend like we're friends. So
we don't have to pretend. We can get our girls together. They're both at Calais, so let's find a way to get them together.
As long as you promise to rub my girl with that mama magic that you're so clearly adept at distributing. So thank you. Thank you for raising. And I can only assume that your son is as charming and wonderful as your daughter, but impressive kids come from impressive mamas. So go forth and teach me. Teach me what you can.
Love it. Just know that she still does the teenager rolling the eyes,
and of course she does.
I get all of it still. Go ahead, Gretchen.
Just to let you know, I just checked Facebook Messenger for messages, and I think there were 8 people that asked for the link. So there's going to be some more people jumping on. I just sent it out to about 8 or 9 people. So we may need to just kind of review the welcome or group norms or something.
Perfect. So that helps. I see some popping in now.
Welcome to all of you that are jumping in. Sorry we were late checking the messages. Glad we saw you. We're glad you're here.
Perfect. So, all right. So any other questions? I love camping. I'm trying to be more conscious of getting up and moving and being healthy. I was blessed to go on a walk yesterday, even though my lungs were dying because all the smoke. But yeah, so I love if you ever get to know me, you'll know that if it's a puppy, any form of children, puppy to human children, I love children. So that is who I am. I've gotten hooked on Hamilton. I've watched Hamilton a lot, so we're pretty goofy. Come here, Patience. Say hi. They can't hear you. She heard me say Hamilton and she ran down the hall. So, okay. So I'm going to dive in. So I'm going to show you a slide. And when I show you the slide, if you do not mind telling me what comes to mind, what do you think of when you see this slide? So on the slide, it says traits: using coercion and threats, use of intimidation, use of emotional abuse, use of economic abuse, use of isolation, use of minimization, denying and blame, using children, using privilege. What does that, for those who want to interact, what does that kind of trigger in your mind when you see that? I think I hear a dog. The dog wants to help too. Can anyone connect with these?
No, my microphone, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, you're fine. I see a chat. Let's see. Police, family, systematic racism. That was put in the chat. Anyone else?
Okay, I'm going out on a limb here and taking a risk.
Go for it.
Our president. Don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but I just went there.
Okay.
I was thinking bullies. Yep.
Bullies. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? You. Wow. So I got this list from the domestic violence website. And when I looked at this list, I was like, wow, if you really look at this and you look at the state of the relationship that has been present between white America and Black America, these are many of the same exact traits that have been experienced. So someone might say, well, how did you come to that conclusion? So when we're looking at, for example, I mean, use of intimidation. I mean, if we even looking back towards slavery or even currently, you know, there is, if we talk about racism, we look at even some of the radical groups, it's this emotionally charged hate, anger, how dare you come out of your place. I've been told even currently, you need to stay in your place, you know, and having that intimidation, like you don't want to cross me or else. Use of economic abuse, using it for, as far as we look at funding for zip codes, you know, different zip codes have different funding. So using that as a way of power and control, labeling certain areas ghetto versus the good areas. But there's this book, it's hot off the market. I was talking to a friend today, Michael Jordan, he said, you have to read this book. So I'm starting it, called The Color of Law, that talks about redlining. And, you know, when you're using isolation, that can even go under redlining and some of those pieces. So as I was looking at these attributes, I was like, a lot of these same attributes that we look at when we're describing domestic violent relationships is the relationship between white and Black America. And it's this dominance and this traumatic experience. It really is. I mean, to be quite honest with that. So when we're looking at those pieces, there is, and then I went back and I looked at, this is the exact image that's on the domestic violence hotline. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, and even when Gretchen was like the president, I'm like, well, yeah, I can see some of these. Using the children, one of the classes that I teach at Pierce is child abuse and neglect. And part of that class, I talk to the students about when you are making calls for child abuse, be aware of what you're reporting and why. Are you reporting simply because they don't parent the same way you do? Are you making a report based on unconscious biases that you have? Or do you truly suspect abuse? And being able to unpack that, because it is factual and the data is out there that the number of children of color who are in the system based off of reports of abuse is much higher than white children. So looking at some of those pieces, when we're looking at that, we're understanding that. And so as I was looking at this and I looked up the definition of abuse, I was like, this relationship, what we are seeing in our society and what we've been seeing in our society for quite a time is a breakup. It is one population saying, I'm tired of being in this abusive relationship. I'm ready to leave. I'm ready to have better. I want to be treated better. So there's this breakup that's happening. And in this breakup, there are steps and there are reactions that happen as the group who's been abused. And when I'm saying that, Black America, there are steps that they're taking of like, I want to break away from this relationship. Has anyone seen the movie Enough with Jennifer Lopez? And oh my goodness, movie night for all of you on Friday. It's the 90s. I think it's in the 90s. So I think I actually have a clip of it. Let me see if I can find it. So when I was looking at this, and I'm like, you know, there's a breakup that's happening. There is I'm tired of this relationship. I want out. I want freedom. I want to stop the oppression. I want to stop the control. I want to stop this. I was looking at like, you know, how do individuals who are in abusive relationships heal? How do those get out of the relationship? How does that whole process look like? I grew up, my parents, before they were divorced, it was an abusive relationship. And a lot of those same traits that I seen there growing up, I see now. This elitism, this you are beneath me, you're inferior to me, you come to me for what you need, your resources rely on me, your worth relies on me. And it's Black America's tired. We're breaking it up. And I even look at it so far as an arranged marriage. It isn't a marriage of love. You know, it wasn't a marriage that came together because we fell in love with each other. It was like, you are going to be married to the society. We are taking you, we're bringing you over here due to free labor, and you are going to be married to the society. So, and looking at this, so I was looking at this clip, and if I can find it, I thought I had it up. Maybe I don't anymore. I'll just talk about it. So I was looking at this clip from this movie with Jennifer Lopez as she was leaving her husband at the time from, I feel like I'm not going to do it justice if I don't show it. When she was leaving her husband from the abusive relationship, she did everything she could. She changed the way she looked. She moved where she lived. She repeatedly moved. He used money to control her. He would go in and lock her bank accounts. He would get control of where she was employed and wouldn't let her get jobs. He got a hold of her security system. He got a hold of her friends. Everything around her, this man controlled to keep her from leaving this abusive relationship. And I was looking at this clip, and I'm going to show it to you guys really fast. And as you look at it, it's about, oh, we got to get past the commercials. As you look at this, I ask you, if you don't mind, to, even though Jennifer Lopez is a beautiful, wonderful woman, I want you to imagine Jennifer Lopez as a representation of Black America. And the man who plays her husband as the of white America. And I want you to look at it from that perspective and reflect on that for a second and tell me if you can see a connection in that. Here, here.
What do we think? We like it here?
Why? Are we moving again?
No.
She changed her name.
Do I get a new name too?
I guess. What's your name?
Queen Elizabeth.
She changed her appearance.
I like this.
But nothing could protect her from the most dangerous man she's ever known. Her husband.
I want you back. It'll be just like it was. It's the information age, sweetheart. You leave a trail everywhere. You can't run forever, Slim.
Why not? I'm good at it.
The funds in your account seem to be frozen.
This is all Mitch, okay? He's just trying to scare me.
How about the windows in your apartment? Are they still locked? Person go crazy thinking about stuff like that. Hi, Gracie.
Gracie!
You know, love is a scary thing. How powerful it is, what it does to you.
The cops can't help you. No one can help you. It's going to keep on coming until he kills you.
You have a divine animal right to protect your own life and the life of your offspring.
You ready?
Yes. I need a woman who looks like me. I need Mitch to think I'm here in San Francisco.
So how do you win?
I attack.
And what do you do after you attack?
I never stop attacking. Self-defense is not murder.
Enough.
So take about 30 seconds to kind of just reflect on that. I know it's pretty intense. Come on, there we go. And as you're reflecting on it, think about a population that was brought to this land under gruesome circumstances, abused, was freed, but the systems around them weren't free. There began the Jim Crow laws. There began the legal system. No matter what you or what they were doing to be completely free, there wasn't that full freedom. And I'm asking for 2 or 3 brave people to kind of just share, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking? Is there a connection?
My name is Earlyn Marsh, and I'm First Presbyterian Church of Puyallup. When I first read Waking Up White, I became aware of this for the first time. I hadn't thought about it at all. And I see this in this movie. I see exactly the connection that you're making. I felt and do feel embarrassed, hurt, and like I like almost powerless.
Mm.
And it has hurt me a lot in the last 2 years that I've been now working on this and trying to understand it and trying to see what I can do about it. And that's part of the reason why I'm here. And part of the reason that I've gathered a bunch of friends around me to help me.
Thank you, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, my name is Bill Bowers. Anyway, I think that's a good illustration, a good analogy. I mean, it makes you think about just that thought of, you know, when you talk about a breakup, it's not a not a relationship that's working, and that sense of not being able to get out of it. Yeah, so it's a good illustration. Makes me think, because it's obviously hard for us to identify with what it would be like to be in that situation. So I think that's a really, really good comparison.
And as you were talking, I was thinking, like, one of the pieces of the definition of abuse, it talks about is a pattern of behaviors used by one partner to maintain power and control over another partner in an intimate relationship. And at first you would think, we don't have an intimate relationship. You know, we're not family. I'm not married to any of you. I'm getting new friends, but but really as a society, we are an intimate relationship. I mean, we're the grocery store, we live next door as neighbors. Even how we flow on the freeway, we are in it, and we're not living out in the woods. I even know I was talking to a friend today named Chris, who's out right now in Wisconsin enjoying a wonderful camping trip. I was like, I'm so jealous. You can breathe. There's fresh air. But we are in this intimate relationship in our everyday engagement, and yet one partner of this relationship or this unification has had power and control all these years. And how dare we try and be released from that power and control and have that true coexistence together. So I want to make sure I didn't. Gretchen, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, I think thinking that abusive relationships don't always have to be that one-to-one. I know a few years ago, I was having a really hard time at work, and I was crying on the phone to my mom, and she said, Gretchen, you are describing an abusive relationship. Mm. And I was in an unhealthy place that wasn't safe. But so yes, definitely resonates that way. But the other thing you said that really made sense is the arranged marriage. It's not like part of the couple chose to get into the relationship. They were put in the relationship, right? So I think that was another thing that really resonated when you said that.
Perfect.
Only when you're talking, when you're talking about a job or a romantic relationship, if things are healthy, then you both have a say. But in this situation, it's like, to be Black in America, you don't have you can't break up with me unless I want you to, because I hold all the cards. And that's where, sure, we can say, oh, well, you don't like it, you can leave. Except I control your housing, I control your finances, I can give you the stink eye through my windscreen as I'm driving down there. I mean, it's just, everybody needs to be able to break up if they want to break up. And we don't enable that to happen. We can't just leave our jobs that are unsatisfying. And by the way, for those of you who know where I work, I'm very happy with my job. But if you are in this situation, there's just nothing.
So I want so I said there's hands raised and there's hand raised. So I have the order as Cammie, Wayne, Robin, and Chris. So Cammie, if you want to go, and I'll put Joyce.
Thank you. Yeah, so one thing I noticed in the movie enough is there's a theme of fight or flight, right? So she first is going with flight. She's trying to escape. She's trying to get away. She doesn't have the skills to fight back yet. And then you see in the movie that she does a ton of training to fight back. So when we look at that correlation and we look at America versus the abuser, it's like, well, my goodness, it's so reasonable to want to fight back. It's logical to fight back. And there's kind of the sense of what took so long, for some people. And of course, there's been fighting back and incrementally, for decades and, so long, right? But the fighting back that we see today, whether it's through peaceful protests or even the rioting, we need to find some legitimacy for the root of that, where it comes from. And I think that's a really strong correlation with the movie.
Thank you. I have Wayne.
Hi. So I'm looking at this and I'm looking at the big picture, because that relationship obviously was one that's that we do not desire. We do not desire an abusive relationship. But the big picture, the long-term picture is, what is it are we looking for? What do we want? What we want is a good, healthy relationship where all parties can get along and do well together without abuse, without control, be on equal footing. That's the long-term picture that we want to see. And right now, seeing that footage there, what I see is what Cammie says exactly right. It's fight or flight. But we want to get above that. We want to get to a point where it's not fight, where it's not flight, where we can grow together to be better people all around. That's
I totally agree. And we're going to talk about steps and how we get there. I totally agree with that. The next person I have is Robin.
I was actually just going to point out that some people had their hands raised, so I'm good.
So then Chris. Chris is here. Where did Chris go?
Oh, yeah, I don't have my video on because I'm out camping and it would look really scary as it did the other night around the campfire. I just made me, this is after 40 years, since my dad went back active duty and, I started moving into diverse communities. It's the first time I thought about it this way. Davida, this is really good. And it just made me think, on the couples that I know that have tried to get back together after abusive, domestic violence situations. Would anybody ever ask the abuser, if it became healthy, to not let the person who is being abused ever talk about and bring up, the past abuse? They need to continue bringing it up. They need to continue processing it. And so many people are like, oh, this stuff happened in the past. It wasn't me. It wasn't even my parents. They're, in their denial. No, this is the breakup time. This is the time of separation for the last 150 years. And it'll take a while. And we do need to continue processing.
Thank you. I have next Joyce and then Sarah.
Thanks for making this platform and this presentation. I did see the movie. I cringed the whole way through. Bringing it up in the topic in which we're doing right now, I see myself more as Gracie. I was raised in an abusive household and a stepfather that was crazy, was mentally challenged, had to be the reason. And yes, I wanted a divorce. But as Gracie, you love the people also. There are people that you do love that might be of white, black, and Gracie loved both mom and dad. She didn't understand the conflict. And I guess partly I don't always understand the conflict because I do also have white relatives. My sister-in-law is white, and so I don't always want that conflict. I want relationship. I want, you know what I mean? I don't fight with my sister-in-law, by the way, just to be clear. But I guess I don't want a 100% breakup. I just want it to be better so that I don't feel like that Gracie child who is scared and want to see love on me from both sides, both mom and dad, black and white. You know what I'm saying?
Let me clarify that. I don't. When I'm speaking of the breakup, I'm speaking of breakup of the abuse,
yes,
not the relationship. Because I mean, I think
I get your analogy.
We're family. I mean, I don't plan to go anywhere, but we want to, and I think Wayne said it great, we want to be able to be in a healthy relationship as a society. to the best of our ability. We know we're always going to have things. There's going to be things. There's going to be, we're ain't all perfect. I'm not perfect. My husband, I love him, but there's some days that like, I need you to take a break because you're getting on my nerves. But that's natural, so so I do agree, and I do hear what you're saying with that. Thank you. And then Sarah, before we move on.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think another important element that is that she tried to do her own thing. She tried to build her own life and just go about her business, and he pursued her. And I think that that's an important thing to acknowledge, is that when there have been times that Black communities built up wealth or prosperity, there's that element of white society coming in and interfering and destroying things and just not letting there be peace and not letting there be equality.
Right. When you said that, I thought about the Tulsa massacres. I think about the many church bombings, and I mean, it's that mindset. You stay in the place that I told you you're supposed to be in, and continually fighting to come from with under that. And so as we're looking to, and I loved how Wayne brought it out, get to the point of where we want to have this healthy relationship, we have to understand that we talk about racism, we talk about anti-racism, but there is this also with that, what we have to look at and understand is there is anti-Blackness. And the anti-Blackness piece is, it really pinpoints, how do I want to say it? It really pinpoints almost the heart of racism. So even though slavery has ended 150 years ago, there are systematic norms that try to keep Black people in a particular position. There is no allowing and are trying to disallow a movement of up. So I did another talk, and I talked about the difference between indentured servants and slaves. And those who were indentured servants, you came over, you paid a debt, you worked your time off, and then you were free to go to be an equal part of society. Slaves, there was no expiration at all. You were expected to be there until death. And there was no contract. So it's this mindset that you have this position in society, and that is the position you're always supposed to have. Even though there was the freeing of slaves, laws began, we talked about Jim Crow laws began to get into place to try and keep Blacks in this space. And if you think about, if we look at media or some of our conversations, it's Black and white are always seen as the complete opposites. White is the standard of what you want to go to. Black is the standard of what you want to go away from. So, and we have not got to this narrative or gotten to this mindset of we are human beings. Humanity, it's not just white humanity, there's also Black humanity. We're all part of humanity, and seeing each other and embracing each other as humanity in our differences. So trying to make sure I'm not missing any of my notes. So I have here, when we look at social media, lately social media, if anyone's on social media, it's the perfect example of where the belief systems that we thought were gone are still there. Like the comments that are put out and things that are people's, like, I call them the keyboard bandits. They come out and things that they won't say to your face, they're putting out on, so because they can hide behind the computer, which shows that some of those same thought processes, some of those same frameworks are still there. in our society. So we're looking at humanity, the human race, human beings. But in our society, Black humanity doesn't have the same value. And how do we know that? There was a study in the medical field way back when that still kind of exists. If you look at prescriptions, that said that Blacks don't feel pain, or they don't feel as much pain. So if you look at, and there is a study done that looks at, doctors will give a lighter prescription to, when it comes to pain meds, to a person of color than a white person, because they believe that, well, they don't feel pain as much, or they won't tend to. And this is where, if you look up the study, Culture Humility, that's where that study came out of, the medical field, of where there are doctors who are like, well, I understand, they can handle it, they're made for this, they have the hips for childbearing, they have the bone structure to take this. So it is this racist mindset of Black humanity that even puts us to the point of we're not human. So we look at our system of, the three-fifths clause back in slavery, where Blacks were considered 3/5 of a person. Well, that was done away with. But here's a piece, and when we look at this, and again, getting to the point of where we're all considered an equal value of humanity is, yes, the 3/5 clause is gone, and Blacks were considered a whole person, but then came in the place of, we don't want you to vote. We have the power and the number of seats in the House because we're counting you, but we don't want you to vote. You don't count. You're not a human. We're allowing you to count for a seat. And so looking at these different pieces, that where, when we're saying humanity or human race, because everyone, and I'm going to say it, I'm going to go there. Everyone loves to quote, there's a Martin Luther King speech that talks about where, everyone is equal, and we're hearing everyone say all lives matter. And I said, yes, but are they mattering equally? Are they valued equally? And right now, I can go to, maybe Connie or Doris, and to them and say, yes, to them they matter equally, but as a society as a whole, we see time and time and time again, they don't matter equally. And that's what we, as we're working on this relationship, that we are becoming where we are valued equally. So Chris has put a note, it says, now proven in the opioid epidemic among white Americans, ironically due to prescriptions to predominantly white people, now is readily given to Black Americans. And he's going to find the study. So that is something to look at. Where am I at? So an analogy to this I want to give. So I love my babies. They are my babies. So when they were little, I used to always make sure during Christmas, everybody got the same number of gifts. That worked when they were little. As I got older, that stopped working. Because as my son, they're 7 years apart, as my son got older, his gifts tend to get quite a bit more in price. They got bigger. My daughter, I can run to Target, fill a basket, run to Old Navy, fill a basket on sale. She's much easier to shop for. And and it's a little bit of a conspiracy theory, so you guys might back me up. It's much easier, and there's more of a supply for girls out there than for boys. And so I started noticing as they got older, I couldn't give them the exact same thing all the time. So what happened was my son was like, she's your favorite. You give her so much. You love her more because she's a girl. And So I was like, well, no. So then I had to, as a parent, back up, be like, okay, I need to look at and gift my children as individuals and understand they're not going to get the exact same. You know, if I have to with my son, be like, yeah, son, you have only 3 gifts, but your gifts cost about $1,000, where hers was only, you know, $300-400. So it's not about so much giving them equal, it's getting what's equitable. And so if our society was built on where, I mean, again, we can look at this concept of girls and boys stuff, where it was an equal resource of things and equal opportunities of things, we could do the concept of everybody gets 3 gifts for Christmas. But our society wasn't built on that. Our society is built on one group has got a flood of gifts. They have the shopping spree of Target. I love Target. Of getting all their stuff at Target, where the other kid is like, I'm not getting anything. I'm barely getting anything. I'm not getting anything that I like. I'm not getting anything that fits me. I'm not getting anything that even remotely looks like me. And so as a society, we still want to say, well, it's equal. But our foundation was based on one gets more than the other. One has more privilege than the other. So we can't gift the same way. We have to look at equality. I'm sorry, equitable situations, not equality for this. And that's where when we're looking at this, we're saying, look, for 150 years, 400 years, I'm gonna say black and brown, more so black because we can go into colorism, have been given the short end of the stick. We need to help give them what they need to help even this playing field. It's not so much we're taking from you, but we know what their needs are right now. And we need to meet their needs right now to help so they're not always in this survival mode of life. And I kind of look at it at this aspect of, you know what, America, we made the brats out there who are throwing the tantrums, who are like, but what about me? You're not giving me all of my, but what, like my daughters had those times. And so, and sometimes when you do that, like, look, right now, like my kids used to take them to the mall. My son would be all loving and happy when we're in a store that's about him, but then have an attitude when we're in a store about his sister. And I have to stop and say, look, right now, this is about your sister, and we're going to make sure your sister has what she needs. And that's when we're looking at humanity, and the aspect of humanity has not always included Black humanity, is we want to bring that into the piece. Another example of that is anti-Blackness. When we're looking at this piece, it accepts levels of violence in the Black community, but there's an outrage with it when it happens in our own white community. Example, a heartbreaking story recently. So with all the protests that have been happening, there's been asked for de-escalating training for police officers. You know, this is no, we don't need this, X, Y, and Z. In the last few days, there was a little boy, I believe he was 12, little boy with autism, who his parents called the police and said, I need help. And in the midst of the interaction, the little boy was nonverbal. And the police made a mistake of what was happening and shot and killed the little boy. In that situation, like I get like chills just thinking of it. Horrible, horrible, horrible situation. Breaks my heart. But now all of a sudden, there's a sense of urgency to train officers to de-escalate. Why isn't there that same sense of urgency when we're watching Black, brown, indigenous people being killed? I mean, constant, and we always say it's happening a lot now. A part of the reason it's always been happening. If you ask the Black community, we're like, yeah, this has been going on. I mean, since I can remember, since I was a child. It's on social media now, and there's body cams and all these different things are bringing out to. But why can't we have that same sense of urgency there? Having the training, having the de-escalation, having the resources of social services to back up our police officers. Our police officers are not, they shouldn't have to shoulder all of the responsibility on some of these calls. That's not fair to them. They're human beings. What we're doing to them, in my opinion, mental health wise, we're putting a huge burden on them. And so when we're looking at anti-Blackness, is this, what is urgent for one society is not urgent for the Black society, and looking to change that. And then using, and I mentioned this a little bit, using white standard as a measurement of good standards. And so I'll show you a little piece of this, and I'll take a break to get any comments. So where this will play in, so this has been, I don't know, as I love working for Pierce. I haven't dealt with this as much as Pierce, but in previous employees, I've had this, come to work professional, come to work, you know, business casual, come to work, look, and oftentimes, like, to me, they're both professional. But people have lost their jobs because they don't have the white shirt and the tie and the Dockers and the slacks. So why is one the standard of what's professional when the other is not? Dreads, I mean, why do we, and I look and everyone's celebrating, oh, they've passed a law that you can't be, you know, fired or discriminated from your job based on your hair, based on wearing dreads or braids, or I'm like, and why is that even a discussion? My natural hair needs a law so I can go to work with my natural hair? Are you serious? Like, could you imagine anyone on here, and I'm just looking at, you know, representation by a site, Joyce and myself, could you imagine if anybody came to you all and said, we got to get a law passed so you could just wear your hair the way it naturally grows? That is an example of where a white standard is being used as a standard of what is right. And that shows a devaluing of Black humanity. Because, I mean, there's humanity, but again, like I said, Black humanity is not in that equation. So I want to take a quick break just in case there are comments. So if anyone has any feedback, reflection, let's take a look for hands. I'm sorry, go ahead. Goose, is it? Can't hear you. The fun of Zoom mic, figuring it out. That's the fun part. Okay, so he's gonna work on that, get his mic. Anyone else who wants to go first? And if I'm missing hands, Robin, help me. So, thumbs up, does it resonate with you? Thumbs down, this is a bunch of BS, well, I don't want to say BS, but bull.
Is it working now?
There you go, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I wanted to really talk about anti-Blackness, because I think it's really important because, especially with slavery, when you look at ancient cultures where you had slavery, if the slave was somehow able to get free and become part of the population, you physically couldn't differentiate them from everyone else. So even if they started from the same kind of place that Black slaves did, once they became a free person, you literally, it was harder to discriminate because you couldn't tell who was who. And I've studied abroad and I've lived in Egypt, and I love Egypt. I love Egyptians and everyone. But there's below Egypt is Sudan, and that's where you get a very black population, and there is a very deep history of Arab and African racism. I think it's the same sort of thing where it's just one population, because they're black, it has a very it's so the eyes can't stop from seeing it, and it makes it a big issue. And and exactly what with like the hair, it's like you can't help but see the difference in the hair, and if you don't like it, it bothers you. You can't help see it.
And I love how you said that, because that's one reason where if you hear many members of the Black community color blindness, that is not a compliment. Because to say, like, I think Trevor Noah said it best, to say that you're colorblind, then how are you driving down the street? Because that means you're not seeing the red, yellow, and green light, at the four-way stop. So how are you? Don't not see me. Don't not see my color. Don't not see my hair. Value it and honor it as being part of who I am, and part of what makes me unique, part of what makes me beautiful. And I did a talk about the different shades of pearls. The most expensive pearls are the most exotic pearls. So, understanding that we're part of the string of pearls, that we should be able to value our beauty and value that piece. And for myself, and I just speak from my experience, my blackness enters the room before I do. That's the first thing people see. And so oftentimes I'll walk in and I'm already judged based on the color of my skin before I even open my mouth. And I love how you brought that up. I can't hide, that I'm a Black woman. I'm not bleaching. That stuff is gross. But I can't hide that. I can't change that. I can't be a chameleon and decide in this room I'm going to be this person. That is there before I even get there. So thank you definitely for bringing that up. Anyone else before I get back to my notes?
Davida, I just wanted to say that one of the things that comes out to me is that in our society, we can see that it's a white standard because we always describe Black people as Black people. We never describe white people. You don't say, well, a white person robbed the store, or a white person did this, but you say the Black people, you say the Asian person, you say the Native American person. There's that descriptor for anybody that's not white, but you don't hear that descriptor for the white person. And so we know just by that alone, that is a white standard, that it defaults to white and anybody else is an exception.
Right.
That's the part that really is bothersome.
I sent, so I am a fan of Chief Ingalls for Puyallup until as of right now, he hasn't done anything to make me think otherwise. And so the police bloggers go out, blotters. And there was one where a group of us were like, why is the only race called out on the police blotter the Black man? No other incidents was any other race called out. And I texted him, I said, hey, I have a concern. He was like, what's up? And I told him, he goes, I'm going to go back and talk to the person who writes that. I'm like, look, I'm not telling you not to put race, but if you're going to do it for all of them. But why is the only one called out is the Black race? That's concerning. And what that does also in, and I want to say brainwashed society, where we've been brainwashed to see Black as bad, that just adds to that brainwashing. That the race that keeps getting called out is Black. The race that keeps getting called out, if you look at others, when it comes to, drunken and intoxicated, are Native or tribal. When you're just adding to that narrative, they're not the only ones out there, so thank you for bringing that out. So go ahead, Joyce.
The narrative of being called out has been in our vocabulary for a long time. If you think back to that, there's blackmail, but there's a little white lie, I mean, even in our vocabulary from days gone by, black and white have been positioned against each other
Right.
in how we present our conversations. You
Right.
blackmailing me versus you told a little white lie.
And, and I'm going to say this. Human instinct does not want us against each other. But when you start, what is it? All the lies we believe when we practice to deceive, way back when the web was developed, and we've had to keep this web that keeps dividing, and it's time to tear down that web. Another piece to anti-Blackness is this piece of hating Black people but loving Black culture. That we're a novelty, that we are on display, that we're a costume, or can I touch your hair? And there's a piece to wanting to educate yourself in a respectful way and wanting to know more, but there's an aspect of like, I'm here for your entertainment, I'm here for your amusement, and that also is dehumanizing people of colors, dehumanizing Black people, as we're here to appease you or appease white society. Go ahead, Gretchen.
At the beginning of this journey for me, I did that in a way that was very good intent, but I think it was actually Robin that called me out in a kind way. I don't know who it was, but I said I was trying to look for people to be speaker, and I was trying to get on board, and I'm like, I can't find anyone who is Black and living it to share. And someone said to me, it's not their responsibility to educate you. It's your responsibility to educate you. And I was like, ah. And so even in my good intent, I wanted to make this happen and I wanted to learn more. I was putting the onus on people of color to educate me. And so that was a very eye-opening call out that I appreciated, whoever it was that told me that or said that to me in love.
Yes. I see Doris.
I was just going to say, since we are a community largely of churchgoers, how many of us have had African choirs come and perform for us? And we think, oh, we're so open-minded. Like, look at us with our little white congregation, and we've got these African children here, and aren't they adorable? And aren't we so accepting and welcoming? What the what? I mean, it's that whole, if we allow you to come and show off your culture to us, somehow that makes us good and it makes you feel really accepted and understood. No.
Yeah, I have this, and I'm going to be very transparent here. So I have this thing with me that when I see friends who are, or anyone, not even just friends, who are white, and they're like, look, I adopted this little Black child. And I'm all like, why? And so that's my answer. Like, is it I adopted because I want to be the savior? Or am I adopting with true, honest, like I fell in love with this child for very wholesome reasons? And there's one lady who comes to our church, and I love her and I love her family, that they have 3 children of their own, white family, 3 children of their own, and they adopted a little Black boy. And you get to see like the love in this family. You can see that she's not only just invested in him as being part of the family, but as his racial identity. Like, she's very invested in him. She's very invested in keeping them connected. She's always trying to find opportunities for him to see and interact with positive Black role models in the community. To me, I'm like, yes. But when it's look, I have my token, then I'm all like, no, and those are those. And I often tell people, be my guest, but really self-reflect of your why. Because there could be more trauma with that. So with any abusive relationship, there is trauma. And so as a person or anyone who's leaving the abusive situation, there is this piece of and I think Chris hit it right on the head. I don't know if he saw my presentation ahead of time, but of this, you know, it's not going to be a kumbaya, we're all better, get over it moment. It's going to take probably a lifetime of healing, a lifetime of the internalized oppression, a lifetime. And that's one of the main reasons for the two-way racial healing project. It's both sides. You know, there are responsibilities that white America has to do in helping to heal this trauma. And there's a piece of what Black America has to do to begin to heal from the trauma, because you know what, we have been forced to be resilient. We have been forced to be in survival mode constantly. And if you ever look up, there is a TED Talk that talks about ACE scores of when someone is constantly in that heightened alert of fight or flight all the time, what that does to you, your mental health, what does that do to your physical health, and that you have to take steps to heal from that trauma. So I can speak for myself and experience of, as I've been doing the social work and social justice work over the last few years, and as things got more intense, I started finding myself just snappy, like just angry and frustrated and just, and I said, you know what, Davida, in order to be effective in this work, you have to heal too. Because I can't be constantly in fight or flight when I come against a Proud Boy. I can't be constantly in fight or flight when I come against the person who says, well, why do we care? You're making too much of a big deal of this. I can't, because then what happens is I react, I emotionally react, and we get nowhere. And so if we want to be on the road of healing, I have to also work on my healing and for my internal peace. As far as my counter, who would be our white counters, there are steps that we must do, or you must do, not me. And again, these are things that came straight from domestic violence website and information. So the abuser needs to admit fully what they have done. And you might say, well, it wasn't me. Okay. It's a system. It's a system of whether you acknowledge or do not acknowledge you've benefited from. And that's where the word white privilege comes from. It's this system. And I even said on one of my podcasts that, you know, consciously or unconsciously, you've enjoyed some of the benefits of the system. And so, you know, admitting the abusive relationship that we've been in for the longest time, acknowledging the abusive behavior, acknowledging redlining, acknowledging slavery, acknowledging our education system, acknowledging what's happening in our medical field, acknowledging what's happening in our local government, acknowledging what's happening in our federal government, acknowledging what's happening in our police system, acknowledging what's happening in our social services. We have to acknowledge without shifting the blame to the person or population that's being abused. And that to me is a key piece. Stop, as a whole, we have to stop shifting the blame. Well, they're doing this to themselves. Well, if they would work harder, if they pull themselves up by their bootstraps, they wouldn't have to deal with poverty. If they would do this, and they stop shifting the blame, like, look, we understand that though it was not our direct creation of the system, the system has been created, and we've allowed the system to continue, and we've had benefits from the system, and we're going to work together in this hard work to dismantle and recreate the system that is inclusive of all individuals. Admit the abuse was a choice. There was a conscious choice, and there continues to be a conscious choice to establish, maintain, and hold to a racist system. It's not by accident. Because if it was by accident, we would get the oopsie. But every time we try to change this or correct this, we get the people who come up and fight hard, tooth and nail, to keep it, and throw full tantrums to keep it, kill people to keep it. There is a conscious choice to keep this racist system. There's a conscious choice to keep this abusive relationship. And part of that healing process is acknowledging there is a choice to do this. Also, start working on changing behavior without seeking praise. Look at me. Go ahead, Doris.
I'm sorry, I just had my little word. That is right there. That's a big challenge for me, for everyone I know. Like, oh, good for you, participation award. No, it's my responsibility. It's not me going above and beyond. It's me finally trying to catch up to what I should have been doing the whole time. Yeah. So that was not actually a hand raise. It was a, you go, sister. You go.
There's that, like, I do get that a lot. Oh, Davida, I did a protest. Oh, Davida, I'm like, great, keep going. And my other piece is that, COVID has been a blessing and a cursing. Like, it's horrible, but it's forced us to slow down. If we were still as busy as we were, things that are going on now wouldn't happen. But I still need, and we as Black and brown people still need the same passion and urgency and fight if we ever go back to normal life. Because before COVID, we were doing this fight. During COVID, we're doing this fight. After COVID, I don't get to put this fight down. The fight's still going to be here. And I don't want to look up and turn like all my white brothers and sisters who are partners have gone back to normal life. And I'm still here like, I'm still in this fight. And I don't want people to jump ship because we're back to work.
Yeah, we're out in the middle of the sea and we need to stay there. And
yeah,
the other part that is really challenging, and I mean, it's hard for me, but so I'm assuming it's hard for other people, is the admitting the abuse was their choice. Okay, I don't actively walk around making racial slurs. I don't intentionally not hire people of color, so I'm off the hook, right? But no, I mean, anytime I stand by and I let weird Uncle Fred make a joke that is not appropriate, even if I know everyone else in the room knows it's not appropriate, I still have a responsibility to say something, because if I don't say something, there is my choice.
Yeah.
If I vote for somebody or if I shop at a store that supports something that I don't stand for, that is my choice. So sometimes we need to look deeper to find out where we are making those choices, but we are. And that acknowledgement is tough to swallow, but we need to do it.
And what you're doing and what individuals are doing is there has not been space. Joy DeGruy talks about epigenetics, and there has not been space in our society yet to give people of color space to and start that healing process. So I talk about, and Chris is there, and Chris doesn't know the story, but he knows, he was there, but he doesn't know the effects of it. So at the protest downtown, there was an encounter that happened. And I was handling it, but in handling it, Chris and a couple other white gentlemen came in and intervened and took over that situation and handled the situation. I went home and I love baths, took a bath and had like that deep cry. Because for a moment, I did not have to be the holder of planning, putting together, validating, affirming, defending. Like, I didn't have to do every role in the social justice fight someone helped take on that mantle. And I felt in myself like, for a moment, and I just cried. I was like, because it's hard to when you are the person who is the target of the anti-Blackness, I can't have an emotional outburst out in public because I have to keep it together. Someone can cuss me out, call me names, spit in my, keep it together. At that moment, someone came in and said, "Sister, I got you," and gave me a space to be like, I don't have to be part of that abuse. I don't have to take that abuse. I have a safe exit. And so that's part of being part of the change without needing the praise. And I could have won a lifetime and not said that happened, but there are going to be all those moments that go along. Go ahead.
I'm thinking about how difficult, thank you for clarifying a little bit, because being at the protest, it's like, oh, what? Clearly there was something going on, but not knowing what it was. But I just, as a mom, and again, your daughter was just so raw and so, even at the time, I was thinking, oh my goodness, to be parenting Black children and leading this event and being your own person, like that's so many layers of emotional investment, and just thinking about your life, frankly, it exhausts me. And so, yay, thank you, Chris, for stepping in and allowing, a bit of release and keep going with those baths, because, wherever you can find those little moments, but that to be Black, advocating for yourself, advocating for your community, advocating for your family, and trying not to be swallowed up as your Davida. it's amazing, and you don't have time.
Definitely exhausting. I went to the ocean and I loved that week. I turned it all off. It was a great week. The last two steps is develop skills to replace the abusive behavior. And that comes like, no one's expecting anyone to go out there and be perfect with this. I mean, really, we are reprogramming a very deep-rooted system. Rob and I were having a conversation before that. She was like, I might say this wrong. I'm like, oh, please. I'd rather you say it wrong and we work through it than you not say it at all. So it's and I do also give the message out when I do talk to people of color is, sometimes you have to give space for them to trip up because they're trying to figure this out, and that's part of the reason for the PLP experience, a place where, okay, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to educate myself. I'm trying to unpack this as I'm working to be an advocate. So looking at the community worth versus the me worth. I think about our country has this thing, this is my country, this is me, this is self, and you must assimilate, but we are a community. And I said this at the protest. God does nothing by accident. He could have easily changed the entire ecological system to where we all came out the same skin tone, regardless of how much sun we were in. But the minuteness of our skin tones, like, we are beautiful within our community, and we need to be able to embrace the beauty of our community and stop forcing, Black and brown people are resilient. Stop forcing us to have to be resilient. Build a society for others to advance, for others to grow, for others to learn, and where we are equal. We're equal partners in this. With that, so I understand that everyone here attends church, or is a believer, and that's fine. I'm not here to convert anybody, but I think one big piece that is important is, what is the role that the church has played in this? And if you ever have a chance to look up the slave Bible. And there is this piece of where religion and Christian beliefs were used as a tool to manipulate and validate racism. And so I really believe that as a church, we hold a key piece to the healing process. And part of that is looking at our history. I mean, it's said 100 times over, the most segregated day of the week is Sunday. Why is that? You know, we have to come to terms that the church, the Bible, you know, has been used to cause our breakup, to cause our abusive relationship. And that is in no way at all a reflection of who God is. That is not how he operates. That's not what he believes. You know, he says out of Adam, he made all nations. Okay, last time I checked, Adam was from Middle East, northern part of Africa. So that's just biology. That's just basic. So we as a church have to acknowledge that there is a lie within our family that we have to deal with, we have to confront, and we need to heal, and we need to come together as a community, as a church body as well. I'm almost, oh, was that my last slide? So the last piece that I have with this is, in addition to what has to happen for those who are identified in this as the abuser, there is a piece of what, again, two-way healing project, it talks about both parties and what both parties have to do. There is this piece of that as Black community of forgiveness, but there's a tricky part to that, is the forgiveness is not about the white community. It's about us and our healing and what we need to do. But it's important that as we're speaking forgiveness, forgiveness does not exonerate the white community from anything that was done. Forgiveness does still call for accountability. Forgiveness still calls for actions that need to be done within the white community. Forgiveness is about, I don't have to walk around every single day with the internalized impression, with the bitterness, with the hatred within me, because that's part of that ACE score that tears me down and beats on my mental health and beats on my physical health, and looking at that. So I have here, we can't wait around for racism to be cured to forgive. This will be a lifelong journey. So forgiveness is within us. Forgiveness does not exonerate. You do not hold control to forgiveness, or you cannot hold guilt to make someone forgive you. It's, and I look at this piece of like, that's just like the abuser saying, look, I did all this work, now you must forgive me. That's not how it works. I hold the power to the forgiveness. I hold the power of when and how I want to forget, and if I want to forgive. That doesn't change the work that you must do, or the ownership or the responsibility of your end of it that has happened. You must still work to work, even if you are not forgiven. Don't let that stop you from doing the work that you're doing. So with that is where comes in that two-way racial healing project of saying, you know, we're doing the work on one end and educating and having conversations and having workshops for our white partners, but then there's also the piece of, as people of color, what is our part? You know, how are we? Can we forgive? What are our steps that we need to do? We need to vote. We need to be at the table. We need to be in the conversations. Like, I'm all for protest. Granted, I learned, and here's my, again, transparency. I planned a protest, and I was like, we're going to march from Target off of 100 and whatever, the 160th about, and we're going to walk to 176. Dear Lord, by the time we got to the 176, I couldn't feel my legs. It was hot. I'm so out of shape. And so we did this, and then we walked back, came home. My legs were so numb. Then I sit down watching TV, and it's the anniversary of the Selma March. And they were talking about Representative John Lewis, they walked 50 miles. And I was like, oh, I'm such a big baby. I felt so, and they walked in dress clothes and dress shoes. And I was like, oh, I still have a long way to go. So I'm all for peaceful protest. I'm all for representation. But a big part of that too is that's only one piece. You know, we have to get in there, and I've been working with Puyallup School District, love them. We're doing, I mean, there's a lot happening, you know, working, trying to get city council to come on board with some things. We're working on with city council to get them to approve racial diversity and equity commission that works within Puyallup to start bringing us together, you know, do things and have policies that bring us together racially as a society. I sat down with Chief Ingalls and said, okay, dude, we got to talk. You know, the relationship between the police department and Black community is not good. Let's talk. And had a really good talk with him. And he acknowledged that there are issues, there are challenges, and what he's doing. And I love what he said. He said, I'm the leader. I set the culture of my police department. If I accept racism in my police department, that's going to be the culture. And I set that. And him taking ownership that he is not going to allow that. And, you know, what steps is he taking for training and accountability for his officers, and building relationships in the community, not just with the white members of Puyallup, but the people of color, building those relationships. So I love protesting. Granted, I can't walk the 50 miles as those before me, but there's also the piece of voting and getting active in the community and having those pieces. So part of the two-way racial healing project is finding opportunities, having different avenues to have these conversations, do this work. Patience is going to be working on building a website where kids can come and talk and have a place where they can learn and, you know, have conversations about racism. You know, this happened at school, what do I do? And so, and everyone's like, well, Davida, you're so busy. I thank my papa. My papa put this in me. And I say, you know, it's not just me. You know, I'm not the only person. I have people who've came alongside of me, and some of these things are leading. And we're a group, we're a unit, we're strong together. Like there's a lot I don't know. You know, there's people who are doing the website. There's someone helping organize. We're working on putting together a candidates forum. We're God intended this to be a community. And so we are being a community in this work under this nonprofit, so we can do this for society. We're going to be an example of this is what it looks like. This is how it works. So that's what I have for you all tonight, but I have some time for any questions, comments, throw apples at the screen. I don't know. Go ahead, Goose.
Yeah, I just wanted to, when you brought up the points of what people need to do, I think the most important one is the abusers need to take full blame and to not try and shift blame. And I'm really glad you brought up epigenetics, and I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with it, but just very basic, a biologist, he took stem cells and put them in different cultures with slightly different environments, and that same stem cells became a liver cell here and a brain cell there. And so I think when you look at things like, you know, the single motherhood rate or the crime rate in these communities, and if you just look at it at a very objective level, it looks like it's one person's decision-making process. And so how about they just change their decision-making process? But they don't understand how biologically the environment they're put in is literally, it actually, you know, you can say it's their choice, but it's choice is part of a two-way system. It's not, you can't separate it. And so when people support policies that create negative effects, well, they say, I haven't done anything, but you're still supporting the economic and the, you know, criminal justice policies that are set up those environments.
Yeah. And part of that study, Jordan Grew said it takes at least 3 generations for a population to heal from that. And so the Black community hasn't even had that 3-year span of no trauma, no killings, no racism, to even begin to start clearing out some of that. So yeah, that's good. Chris has in here, how can people on this call give email or phone numbers to volunteer with the Two-Way Healing Project? Very good question. I could put my email in the chat. I put my personal email. We're still working on establishing an email for the nonprofit. So that is in there. So feel free to email me, and actually I'm going to trust you all and give you my cell phone number too. And I'm on Facebook. If you Facebook, not everybody Facebooks, but I am on Facebook. So I see Gretchen, and then I also see Sarah in the little blue hand.
First of all, thank you for the grace to make mistakes, because sometimes I don't speak up because I'm afraid I'm going to put my foot in my mouth. So hopefully this is not one of those times. And I'm not quite sure how to phrase this, if it's a question or a comment, and it goes for the group. But one of the things that has really bothered me, even though I'm invested in this and I support 100%, the friction between, and probably because I know people in law enforcement, the friction between the Black community and law enforcement, that I struggle with that friction. I understand why it's there, but just like I don't want to say all Black people do this, I don't want to say all law enforcement does this. And and so I don't know if anyone has a way to help calm that, figure that out, but that's a friction that I struggle with a lot. I don't want to say all police officers are horrible. And yes, there have been horrible, horrible things. So anyway.
There's a piece to that. There's a couple pieces that I want to say that is, well, as I'm thinking there's more. So a piece of that is being careful that when individuals say that, they're not saying it to devalue what is happening to the Black community. Because oftentimes when that is said, it's the first reaction to, as a defensive mechanism, to say, yeah, but not everybody's like that. When it's used to devalue, it's out of line. Secondly, when we're saying, though a police officer may not be doing the physical act, but even a silent police officer is part of that admission. There's also the piece of, and I had this conversation with Chief Ingalls, and he beat me to the punch, is understanding the foundation of that relationship came from, in the slavery times, if you look at the sheriff's badge from slavery, the ones who went out to recapture slaves and bring them back to their owners, is the exact same sheriff badge that is used a lot now for sheriffs currently. And so the relationship started there. At no point was that relationship ever mended, healed, system policies change. It just continued to go on. So yeah, you have great officers who've been adopted into a I don't want to say it's broken because it's working how it was designed, but a racist system. So when you have, and I can't remember who said it, when you put a good apple in a bucket of bad apples, if you're not careful, the good apple gets bruised right along with the bad apples. Whether it's just by silence, not reporting, whatever it gets. So when someone says, yeah, but they're not all bad. Yeah, but we don't want to keep them in a spoiled system because they will become bad. So we need to change this system because my uncle is an officer, and he was like, I deal with so much racism as an officer, but I stay here because I want to give back to the community. I want to be there. So at what point does he get broken down to where he's tired? Or what point does he want to keep his job and doesn't say anything? And that's both Black and white. So there is that piece. And I've said many times, you can say Black lives do matter and still support police officers. But what you're saying is the fact of this system that has been killing, abusing, the justice system as a whole that has been treating Black people wrong is wrong. It's bad. And it needs to be fixed, and hold that accountability to that. So that's my response. I don't know if anybody else had anything. I hope that helped. Okay.
I just want to say about that, that I feel like the police systems have had a lot of time and a lot of information to clean up their own act, and they haven't done it. And I can understand why there's a call for somebody else to move in and do that. I don't particularly like that, and it hurts a lot, but that's one of the hard things that I think that we might have to face. They've had time, and they've known about this, and they should have cleaned it up by now, and just haven't.
Yeah. I said to someone, I said, we all kind of love going to watch the movies of the crooked cops. Where do you think they get the material from? They don't just make up those storylines out of the thin air. And so it's there. It exists. And even when I was having the conversation with Chief Engel, I was like, everything you're saying is great, but tell me about the accountability. Tell me about the action steps. Like I said, don't give me a politician the answers. I want to know what's going to happen. And so it's important. They have to be held accountable. It's very important with that. And a lot of that starts with relationship.
And there should be no tolerance.
Exactly. I've said this a couple times, and this is, if anyone asks me, what's my campaign slogan with all this, I really believe police officers need to have their own liability insurance. To where when there are incidents, your liability insurance is paying for this, and as that liability insurance goes up, hopefully you get the hint. Either you're priced out, or it's a track record of, look, we keep having, for example, the one gentleman who it wasn't George Floyd, can't remember which officer, but they said that he had 10 other incidents. Why was he still there? Like, there is a point where training is not going to do it. It's time. If I at my job had 10 incidents with students, I would not have a job. Bottom line. If I had it, just, why is it any different? So it's important to have the implicit bias exam for all officers. Even doing background checks further than immediate. What were they doing in high school? Looking for any hint of hate, any hint of bias, right along with a background check. We look for criminal record, but do we look for a racist record?
I totally agree with all that. I think I'm thinking more of like the riots and the violence against police than I am this, and I part of me gets it. I mean, it's anger and frustration, but I still struggle. I totally get what you're saying, but the system definitely, I understand the I forget the word, but bringing in more social workers and, so the police don't have I can't think of the word, but totally get that. But it's the hatred. It's the hatred that hurts.
Yeah. I saw Wayne, and then I'll chime in.
Yeah, this is a topic that's burdened me, certainly, because systematic racism exists in a big way right now. And that also happens in the police system. But I have to say, I have to believe that nobody hates a bad cop worse than a good cop. And that's kind of the position, that's a way of thinking that goes through me. So I don't know. Yeah.
So, did I miss someone? Nope. I want you to also think about this, a couple pieces with this, Gretchen. If I am constantly in an environment where my abuser looks, smells, walks a particular way. Anyone who comes to me looking, wearing that cologne, talking the same lingo, there is going to be an emotional reaction from me. So that's where there's an important part of two-way police department healing their relationship with the community, especially the Black and brown community. There's another piece of this, and I'm going to be just as candid, as honest as I can be. Within those protests, we have to acknowledge there are people who are not part of the Black Lives Matter narrative who are sent there, who are part of insinuating more than. There are those, they're there. So I completely, and here's the other part with that. When you have those who are truly with the movement, who are truly are like, enough is enough, and they're tired, and they're having that emotional reaction, and they're having, do I agree with tearing things down? Do I agree with burning things down? No, not at all. But you're asking them to have the same value as you do as a white citizen in a community where they have had blood, sweat, and tears building, but been told that they can't have participation in it. You can't have an equal value in this, but we want you to sacrifice everything of who you are, your family, your future, and build this for us. At the end of the day, it's kind of like, it's not for me. So I do not agree with tearing things down. I do not agree with, burning things or destroying property. But when I see some of those who are, and I'm not talking about those who are just there to start stuff, it's like, you want me to have value in stuff that you don't want me part of this. I think there was a lady did a talk about, you don't want me to be part of the Monopoly game, but you want me to build the game. And so it's that piece. It's that I'm tired of putting my blood, sweat, and tears to build your mansion, but I can't get in the door. And so they come to this point of like, forget it. And the person you put in front of me and I've had this in the last couple of weeks, people who are sent to handle me or keep me in my place or, regulate me, is the same person who back then was the slave wrestlers and hunters. So we're reenacting what was happening then now. And so that tension continues and that abusive relationship continues. And we're at the point where we're like, enough is enough. Either fix it or it's going to escalate. And it's hard. It's hard. And sometimes when the person is the one who's been abused, it's like you can't always be like, you're not acting right. You're not responding adequate. You're responding as to respond in a matter of trauma and abuse and mental breakdown and physical breakdown. And I mean, if you look at the whole history, our kids have been ripped from us. Like anything you can imagine has happened. Sexual abuse, physical abuse, we kept from getting jobs. Our economic status is being held down. And you, not you, when I say you, please know I'm not saying you personally, but you want us to act a certain way amongst all of that. We talk about Lorena Bobbitt went and cut off her husband's man pieces. And it was like, she was traumatized. She was reacting. Again, that goes to the anti-Blackness. That is some trauma that we're being asked to act civilized. And some of us can and some of us can't. And there are some elements of grace that should be there. No, I've had people come and want me to participate in protests that have violence, and I'm not doing it. For me, I have God. I have my salvation. I have my beliefs. I have I have that when I want to be angry, when I want to be bitter, and I want to scream and yell, that I'm like, God, I need you right now. I need you. This person just said this in my face. This person just did this to my child based on the color of my skin. I need you to help me and hold me and tell me what to do. What can I do? Because I know there needs to be change. What do I need to do? And following that guidance, and he's bringing people in my space to help me not be like, burn it down. I'm tired, burn it down. And be like, no, let me show you how to do this systematically. Let me show you how to do this. That gives a lasting impact. So I hope that helps. We're just about at 8:30 and I don't want to take up everyone's, yeah. Go ahead,
I
Blaine.
just wanted to say thank you, Davida, for taking your time and energy. I know this must be exhausting. So thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, and likewise, I want to say thank you. And you, in particular, have taken the high road, and you are doing what is not really expected of Black people, to educate non-Blacks. So I really appreciate that, and I appreciate what you're doing in the community. So I just want to let you know that. Thank you.
Thank you.